What is happening, everyone? Welcome back to another video. Today we'll be checking out, installing, and reviewing the limited edition Monster Hunter replica shells for the 3000 and 2000. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So yeah, what I got here are two original models. We got the 2000 and 3000. They're both in a pretty good condition. This one is mint, and this one has minimal wear. Let's start off by taking a look at the 2000 model. Now this one has a pretty awesome design on the front, as well as the back. It's very striking. We got a gunmetal colored ring. Yeah, it's not in the best condition, but I can always replace it or polish it or whatever. If you have a keen eye, you'll notice that this is actually a matte finish on this brown color, and it looks awesome, it feels amazing, and when compared to all the other standard models that have glossy finishes, this is as awesome as it gets on a 2000 model. However, when it comes to the Monster Hunter 3000 model, it is hands down the best model that you can get that is original. There is no competition when it comes to this model, and I'll explain why, because I have been doing a lot of testing recently. The videos are coming out later, but I'll give you the gist of it right here. So first off, on the front, there's already a ton going on. Not only we have a nice logo right here, a custom speaker grill that looks like a paw, a concave analog stick, which is way better than all the other analog sticks that are included with pretty much every single PSP model out there. But you'll notice this awesome rubberized texture. Yes, it is as good as it looks. We got a very nice complementary golden trim all around, and with the rubberized black, it is absolutely stunning, alongside with the very unique ash colored triggers, which I'm pretty sure I haven't seen on any other model. And this one, in my opinion, has the best screen that you can get on an original PSP. I'm not talking about IPS, I'm talking about original parts. So just talking about the front, we got a quality of life improvement, awesome unique design features, a very comfortable rubberized texture, one of the best screens, with ash colored triggers and a golden trim. But that's not all, because when we go to the back, we'll find out that this is the console that keeps on giving, and you'll see why. So once again, the rubberized texture is applied across the entire console, on the front and the back, giving it a very comfortable and unique grip. We got these awesome symmetrical designs, which look pretty sick. Again, for the ring, we got a golden color that complements the trim. And you may think that's all, but no, we're just getting started, as the grips on both sides are elevated, giving you a superior grip over pretty much every other PSP out there, including the original 1000. When compared side by side, they look very similar. However, this one has a better shape overall, as the edge here is slightly more elevated. And the last thing, in my opinion, one of the best things about this PSP is the battery compartment, because what it takes is a full-size PSP 1000 battery, which is double the capacity of a slim model. And the best part is, by the way, this is a sneak peek at my upcoming definitive battery testing video. It's a lot of work, and it's going to be a while before it's out. But essentially, a little known fact that I have discovered is that the PSP 3000 model, at least for the 9G revision, are way more power efficient over the 1000 and 2000 models, giving it an insane amount of battery life when combined with a beefy 1000 battery. And I think that pretty much covers it. Whoever worked on this design really loved this console and just poured their heart into it. It is literally the best original PSP model that you can get without any upgrades. So with that out of the way and you're all caught up, let's go ahead and talk about the replica shells, starting with the 2000. And whoever designed the shell made sure to present it in the best possible way by making a fake custom Monster Hunter Portable 2G box for it. And this is what we get on the inside. Alright, so let's take a look. First off, when it comes to the texture, it's very close. It's actually a bit more grippy, and that might be because it's new, but overall it's very close, and I would say it's more matte finished than the original, which is not bad. Moving on, we have the logo. It's pretty high resolution, and compared to other third-party shells, the Wi-Fi switch looks pretty clean, and the same goes for the power button, although it's not very smooth, which is expected. And moving on to the back, the design is slightly darker on the replica, and they have also replicated the dark silver ring, which you don't see a lot on other models. However, you'll notice that the ring here isn't sitting flush, so we may need to open it up and reapply it. And looking at the plastic mold, it used some colored plastic, which is nice. So for the most part, it's not some cheap paint job. Overall, it's looking pretty good, but we don't know what kind of problems we'll encounter until we start installing it, which we'll be doing in just a bit. And if you're wondering where the buttons are, well, they come in a separate package like this that also includes the stickers and extra screws. And unfortunately, these buttons don't match the original colors. Now that could be for two reasons. One of them is that they ran out of stock of the replica buttons, which happens pretty often with the third-party shells. I know this because I've been keeping an eye on it for the past 10 years, or they ran out of budget, I don't know. But that's not a problem. Worst case scenario, we give it some black buttons and we'll give this thing a very nice, unique look. And now we take a look at the 3000 replica. And for some reason, a lot of the shelves that I purchased come with this weird box that says not for sale. It makes it look like it's original. This time, everything that you need is included inside the package, and we'll just drop everything down there and take a look at what we have here. First off, the D-pad and the face buttons do look pretty good. They are of decent quality, but we'll see how they function. We got the usual sticker combo, black media buttons, but the logo here is slightly off-centered. As for the triggers, it looks ash-colored, but something is slightly off. Honestly, it's pretty close. It just has a slightly warm tinge on it, but that's about it. But other than that, they have indeed replicated the unique ash color. We've also got the bag of screws, and it's pretty impressive to see that they have also replicated the concave thumbstick. Finally, other than some parts for the insides, I really do appreciate the SD card slot. Well, that's because most third-party shells for the 2000 and 3000 models, the retainer part is actually not included and requires you to rip it from the old one and melt these plastic points to secure it into place, which as you can see is what we have to do for the 2000 model. When it comes to the UMD retainer, it seems like they just went for the cheapest one that is available, so I recommend that you use the original one that comes with your donor PSP. The insides are very clean, but we'll see how they function once you install. The trim is more golden on the replica. Wi-Fi switch is good, but very stiff to move. And likewise with the power button, it does look good, but it's also very stiff, so we're gonna have to do some modifications and make it smoother. And take a look at the back here, the texture is on point. The rubber is perfect in my opinion. Also, more grippy than the original because it's brand new. The golden ring is very close, but more gold once again. And this time it's pretty flush, so it's not going anywhere. And the battery door is stuck, so that's great. There we go. As for the front, it's got the same texture, good quality prints, and overall we'll see how well it fits. And one last very important thing before we go ahead and install this thing is that these things do come in two different models for two different PSP 3000s. There's the old 093 model and the new 095 model. What we have here is the 095, and the way you can tell is by taking a look at your battery compartment. With the older models, you'll notice that there's a Wi-Fi antenna connected right over here. Basically, when you install it, you have to feed it through and basically secure it like so. Usually there's a sticker right on top of it, so you have to rip the sticker apart. But that is essentially what the old models have. They have a standalone Wi-Fi antenna that is manually connected to the motherboard right over here. However, with the newer models, that is completely gone. The Wi-Fi antenna cutout and groove are completely gone, and basically you're just left with this top corner. As you can see, that connector is no longer there. This is a TA92, and the new one I have is TA95. And that's pretty much it. So yeah, before you pull the trigger, just double check so you can order the right model for your motherboard. So now there's nothing left to do but to go ahead and install it. Alright, so about 24 hours later, I have finished putting these together, and I have some good news and bad news. I'll start with the bad news. Since I have been doing a lot of battery testing, I have set my other overhead camera in the lowest quality 720p footage, so I've got around 4 to 5 hours worth of footage that I cannot use, but the good news is that I can make this video more concise and straight to the point. First off, let's do a quick comparison. And by the way, if you're wondering why the colors are not the same, that's because I'm using a cheap replacement screen from AliExpress, and that's a whole nother topic for another video. As we have mentioned before, the buttons are not the same. They're using some kind of generic color, and the same goes for the D-pad, media buttons, and analog stick. When it comes to the logo and text on the replica, it's much easier to read and look at as the logo is a darker color and the text is in a brighter shade. Taking a look at it from the side, you may not know which one is which, but the original is indeed on top. Power switch ended up being pretty decent, so there's no problems there. And once again, when it comes to the colors, it is very close, and to be honest, I'm liking the replica one just a tiny bit more than the original. In terms of function, the UMD door is pretty solid, so there were no problems found during installation. Battery compartment is pretty good too. And when it comes to the buttons, triggers, analogs, pretty much everything when it comes to input, in my opinion, it's one of the best buttons I have used on a third-party shell. And if you thought the installation process was pretty straightforward, I'm sad to say it's unfortunately quite the opposite. On the course of 2 days, I've spent several hours on this thing, and I have taken apart the shell at least 20 times. So let me quickly take apart the shell and show you guys what's going on. So here's how things played out. First, I started by installing the UMD. It fit right in there without any problems, the door closes perfectly fine, and I was pretty happy about it. Then I went on to install the audio video out, and that's pretty much when I hit my first snag, where I had to file down the area here just a tiny bit to make it fit. So far, nothing major. Then I moved on to the usual stiff power switch that you get on third-party shells. Pretty straightforward, pretty much the same process of trimming, sanding, and filing, and now it's pretty smooth. The whole time something didn't feel right, and I didn't find out what that problem was until I went ahead and closed it all back together. And that's when I noticed this giant gap on the bottom here. Long story short, to save you some time, it didn't work out. After spending several hours trying to get this thing to work properly, I decided that it was going to be a Stack Special PSP in preparation for my PSP 2000 shell swap video. If it isn't obvious already, it's a hard no for me. I'm not recommending this shell. But if you want to try your luck, be my guest. Otherwise, for a majority of people, it requires way more trimming than usual. So what am I going to do with this? Well, here's my plans for it, and I'll show you the end result at the end of the video. I'm planning on turning this one into my PSP 2000 test unit. One of the first things I'll be doing to it is changing the buttons to black. I'll be stealing this ring and installing it on my original, since it's pretty scuffed up. And finally, something I'm pretty excited about is to wire the speaker terminals outside to allow me to freely test and demonstrate future LED, speaker, and haptic feedback mods. So make sure you stick around for that. In total, after shipping, this cost me $27 compared to the $32 I spent for this one. So would I buy this again? Definitely no. And finally, we can take a look at the most exciting one, which is the 3000. Overall build quality is fantastic. The buttons here feel great once again. That's after some modifications. So with this one, things went pretty smoothly for the most part. In fact, they were going too smoothly and I was skeptical. Right when I get to the part where I was installing the faceplate, that's when I started having issues with the right D-pad. You see, it fit pretty well. It's honestly very clean. The power switch once again did require some sanding, but overall, it is a very nice fine finish and fit. Like, it's 90% there. The battery door is still kind of iffy. I have the same problem with the original one. And one thing I did for both of these PSPs is use an original UMD retainer, as the ones included are usually pretty cheap and sometimes corroded as well. So before I go ahead and take it apart and show you guys what I've done, let's do a side-by-side comparison. Starting with the media buttons, with the original one being on the top. As you can see, the logo is slightly bigger, it's dark gray, while it's a bit smaller and offset with the Replica. Overall, they do function pretty well, and I haven't had any issues with them. And when it comes to the buttons, they're perfectly fine, for the most part. And after a little bit of work, they do function almost as well as the originals. Once again, the logo is more visible on the Replica. The textures and colors are almost identical. Likewise with the analog sticks, the Replica has a finer pattern compared to the more aggressive one on the original. Which one do I prefer? Honestly, they're both perfectly fine. Once again, I do prefer the trim color on the Replica, and I definitely like the rear on the Replica a whole lot better than the original. Finally, here are the triggers side by side with the original on the left, and they're quite different. Overall, the inputs here do work almost exactly as the original, but only after some work. And this is the part where I take it apart and show you guys what I had to deal with. Thankfully, it's not as bad as this one, but I did have to take it apart at least 12 times. It started off on the right side where the SD card slot is. To be specific, this part right here. For some reason, it was warped and it was pointing more towards the inside, stopping the faceplate from sitting flush. And after some brutal bending action, I got it to ever so slightly sit properly. Then I went ahead and put it back together, and that's when I noticed that everything was working fine except for the right D-pad. And the fact that the analog was sitting way too close to the edge, which over time will definitely cause some scuffs and scratch the outer area with the bottom side of the stick. So I took it apart again and took it apart several more times to get the right amount of adjustment. One of the things I have done is applied a little piece of tape right under the right D-pad, just like so. Then went ahead and opened up the entire thing and added some more tape right under here. This right side has 3 layers, while this one has 2. And to counteract some of the effects and tune it ever so slightly, in my case, I added a small piece for the down D-pad. As for the analog stick, here's what I've done. I've added a small piece, followed by a small piece of foam to have it push outwards ever so slightly. And once I'm certain that everything was synced properly, I noticed that the square button was getting stuck when pushed to the left. And a bit of the same was going on with the right D-pad. So for the square, I applied a small piece right here, followed by trimming the edge here and making it smoother using some sandpaper. And there was a small lip that was getting stuck on the left edge of the shell. And for good measures, I did the same for all the other buttons, as well as the right side of the D-pad. And early on in the process, I was fed up and decided to go try something stupid, and that is pushing in and bending this left side of the faceplate, which caused the original lens to pop out, which gave me the opportunity to install a glass lens instead. So right here, we have upgraded to glass. It's a pretty straightforward process, but for some of the third-party shells, it's quite a pain. So I'm still experimenting with this one. I've got a lot of things I want to cover when it comes to the glass lens upgrade, so stick around for that video if you're interested. So, after all that work, is this thing worth it? Would I buy it again? I would say absolutely yes. I would give it a 10 out of 10 would buy it again, that's for sure. It's by far one of the nicest third-party shells I have ever seen for the PSP. The finish is fantastic, it's based on the best shell model, and despite the little hiccups here and there that I encountered, I would definitely be down to buy another one and go through the whole process once again. As for this one, to be honest, alongside with pretty much every other PSP 2000 shell swap, as far as my experience goes, most of them have major issues, including this one, which is quite unfortunate. So it's a definite big yes for me when it comes to the 3000, but when it comes to the 2000, despite its awesome looks and good texture, it's very hard to recommend for me. You may be lucky and have a perfect experience with a proper mold, but mine did not have that. And speaking of mold, why not test out one more thing, and that would be with a Go camera. Since some of these cases have horrible tolerances, sometimes they don't sit properly and you end up with a terrible fit. And let's jump to the camera. Yep, so that's one issue you'll encounter. It simply won't read. Let's try the other model. It doesn't like it. Now with this one, I'm not getting any grip with the screw thread, but let's try it anyways. And it seems like it works. Perfect. Another reason to get this one. So once again, for $32, I would be definitely down to try this project one more time, so long that these shells are still available. Usually stuff like this come and go, and they disappear within months. So if you are interested in a replica shell, make sure to make your order now, but just make sure you grab the right tools, which I'll leave links for in the description down below, and be ready for the challenge up ahead. I'm going to go ahead and do what I promised. This one is going to get some white buttons, while this one is going to get some black buttons. So give me a couple minutes to do that. And here is the result with the black buttons, and yet another cracked screen. I've sacrificed so much for this shell, and it's still not enough. But yeah, I think it looks a whole lot better with the black buttons over these taffy looking things. Again, don't get this shell, unless you want crippling depression. As for the 3000, I have added the white buttons, and I think it looks pretty good, looks pretty clean. I may go back to the black ones, but white does work with this one pretty well. Overall, I'm pretty happy with this one. And the only thing left to talk about would be the thumbstick. How is it compared to my PS Vita thumbstick mod from the last video? Well, it's definitely better than the stock PSP ones, that's for sure. But it still has flipping potential, so the PS Vita one still reigns supreme. It has been a very long 2 days. This was supposed to be a short fun video and turned into a traumatic experience with this shell. It's honestly pretty painful, and I hate how much I have sacrificed for this thing. If you have any questions, do let me know in the comment section below. Links for everything will be in the description down below, along with the tools and shells. And yeah, that is all for this video, so thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care, everyone.